Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is part 2 of On Me, Midnight X-Mal Listener. I do hope you enjoy. Sorry, I am losing my voice, but I'm going to try and hold it together as best I can because the show must go on. So without further ado, here we go. You gave the guy another round of strong eye contact, and after playing the stare game for a few seconds, he finally clicked his tongue to the inside of his cheek and threw Nemuri's arm down. She didn't bother to tell him off or get up and kick him or anything like that. She just sat there, still and looking dejected. You kept a watch on the guy as he stormed off, heading for the door, and then he left and you looked at her. "Hey," you said to get her attention. "You okay?" She didn't look at you, but shrugged and placed both forearms on the counter, one across the other, then flopped her forehead down onto them. You knew that she wasn't okay, but you also knew that there wasn't much that you could do for her at this point, so you just waited to see if she would open up more or say anything else. While she sat there, you tidied up a little more, making the place as neat as possible before closing for the night. It was now 12 a.m, and you were due to close then, so you left the bar to walk around and remind the last remaining patrons that the time for close had come and they should head out soon. While you were talking to the last people, you also did a quick sobriety test to make sure that you weren't sending any super drunk people out into the world for that night, but thankfully the last few were still okay and you wished them well and then turned back to the bar. Now, just to deal with one more drunk, you thought as you walked behind the counter and walked over to Nemuri. She didn't lift her head as you approached her, and you were almost about to speak to her when you heard light snoring. You paused. "Is she asleep?" you thought. You stood there for a second and then sighed and turned away. "Better take her back to my place. If I put her in a cab now, she might fall asleep in there, and I'll never forgive myself if anything were to happen to her," you thought with annoyance, wondering why all of a sudden you cared about what happened to her. Finishing up, you came back to her and walked around the counter. "Hey, you can't sleep here," you said as you lifted one of her arms. Her head smacked onto the counter and she lifted it and looked around groggily, her wayward eyes glossing over you. "Oh, and it's you," she said. "Yes, it's me. I'm taking you back to my place where I know you'll be safe, but now I'm concerned for my own safety," you said, half jokingly, but you said it so dryly that in her drunken state she didn't catch your wit. "I'm a hero," she slurred as you pulled her up to standing and held her against your side. "I'll save you," she added. You almost smirked, but held your cool as you turned around slowly and placed her arms across your shoulders and neck. "Yes, you'd be doing the world a favour tonight by being out of the race," you mumbled, walking her slowly off to the staff room to get your things and then head out to your car. You hadn't really thought about it prior to this event, but having Nemuri squished to your side suddenly had you realising how slim she was. You hadn't ever noticed her in that capacity before, so to suddenly find yourself taking an interest had you back to being annoyed. Why do I care?" you thought as you walked her slowly to your locker, opened it, got your things out, slung your bag over your shoulder, and then closed your locker and headed for the back door. You had to hold on to her a little tighter as you walked down the stairs, and your fingertips sank into her side a little. Being a guy, your mind kinda entertained some thoughts, but then you quickly pushed them aside. She's just a run-of-the-mill female hero who only wants to flirt, you thought, making her the villain again so that you wouldn't be as prone to catch feelings. Down to your car you walked her, then opened the passenger side door and helped her in, then walked around to your side and got in yourself. "Seatbelt," you mumbled across to her, but she was halfway gone again and you groaned. "Hey, you need to..." "Fine," you grumped, leaning over and reaching across to get the seatbelt and plug it in. It was inevitable that your arm brushed across her chest as you reached for the belt, but you did apologise anyway. She took no notice. "She would have been in a bad way if I'd let that guy take her home. All of her defences are down," you thought as you started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. It wasn't too long of a drive to your apartment, but on the second turn Nemuri groaned and reached a hand to her mouth. "Hey, are you feeling ill?" you asked, glancing across to her. She pinched her nose and nodded her head. "Don't you dare throw up in my car," you warned. "You drive like you've never seen a road before," she sassed, groaning again on the end of her sentence. "Hey," you said again, rapidly looking from the road in front to her. She started looking greener and greener and you kept saying hey, but it wasn't helping at all. Window, out the window," you suddenly said, pressing the window button on your door panel for her window to go down. No sooner had it opened completely that she threw herself to the side, her seatbelt locking with the force, and up came all of the night's liquids barreling down the outside of your car. Man," you groaned, putting your indicator on and pulling over to the side of the empty street to let her hop out in case there was more to come up. Come on, you said as you got out and walked around to her side of the car. Out you get. Don't leave me here, I'm not getting out, she cried, half hanging out the window. I'm not leaving you here. I'm getting you out before you ruin more of my car. You can throw up out here, then I'll put you back in and we'll keep going. You said. I feel fine, she replied as she undid her belt and opened the car door, immediately gagging after she said the word fine. You're not fine, you're on the verge of throwing up again, you said, stepping out of the way in case she threw up on you. She gagged again and you reached for her shoulders and turned her away from you a bit. Hi, she started to say, then immediately brought more stuff up. You had seen this many a time at the bar, so it didn't faze you as you held her hair back and rubbed her back a little. Don't go, she whimpered after bringing up the first lot of stomach contents. I won't, he replied, looking over at your car that had spew all down the outside of the passenger side door. You were surprised at how little there was, though, considering the amount that was still coming up out of her. I need someone, she whispered. Yes, well, when you're throwing up your guts, it's good to have someone else around, you said dryly, scrunching your nose a little as she brought up more stuff. It was another few minutes before you got her back into the car and headed for your place, and only a few more minutes after that you drove into the private parking area and got her out of the car in an attempt to take her up to your apartment. With her arms slung across your shoulders again, you got her out of the car, closed the door, and then headed for your apartment. As you entered, you looked up and saw, to your dismay, that the elevator was out of order again. This appeared to be a weekly occurrence, and your face fell. Great. Now we have to go up 3 flights of stairs. You groaned internally. Okay, hotshot. Show me what those hero legs can do. You sassed, heading to the stairs and then taking the first steps up. She was slow, but doing well to put one foot in front of the other. Good. You praised lightly. Keep going. You were halfway up when you felt like she needed to swap sides, and so you held her steady and explained what you were doing, but in that time frame you also needed to swap your bag to the other side, and so slid it down your arm to make the attempt. Oddly manoeuvring it to the other side, you leant on the rail to adjust it, and it slipped, falling from your arm over the rail and looking like it was going to plummet to the basement below. But all of a sudden Nemuri reached across you at lightning speed and just managed to grab the strap in her fist. Whoa, you said with surprise. And there's the end of part 2. Hopefully my voice will be back on board for part 3. I'm sure it will. I've almost got it back. It's more just the high stuff I can't really reach too well. But low stuff, mate, my male voice is thriving in this environment. We love being able to dual wield the voices. Anyway, I'll see you in Gains tomorrow if you're following along with that one. So I'll see you then.